Hindsight is always 20/20, but foresight, as far as predicting outcomes in China, might not be as mystical as it might seem. Sometimes it's as simple as understanding how Chinese people feel and are likely to respond. Developing Guanxi includes a panoply of rituals, but deepening it occurs in predictable stages. But how do we know what Chinese people expect? Hi, my name is Jin Xu, and I want you to add your voice to our journey into China. Because accelerating success through learning Chinese language and culture is about the application of key Chinese cultural concepts in the proper cultural context. So every week, I create a LinkedIn post to get other perspectives about one of 10 Chinese cultural concepts that I believe are misunderstood but essential for understanding how Chinese people think, why they behave the way they do, and how to create more positive communication patterns that lead to more constructive cooperation. This week's Chinese cultural concept is 铁饭碗, which means iron rice bowl. Now, you may think iron rice bowl mentalities don't exist in China anymore, but the reality is they still do in many sectors of Chinese society and industry. It is also the undercurrent of Chinese conservatism, so I believe it's worth taking a deeper look. Okay, so Julia wrote, I have never encountered a situation where I noticed the iron rice bowl mentality. However, I think there are serious cultural ramifications in this mentality if not considered properly. For one, Western society is very individualistic, and it is important that Westerners in China recognize the historical cultural significance of the iron rice bowl mentality. In many ways, this is where collectivism stems from, and is still important today, as various collectivist facilities and services still very much exist. To which Dr. Cerner replied, Western society is very individualistic, would be a generalization that does not apply to Western society as a whole. Well, I guess that would depend on what you call a Western society. But if you take Portugal as an example, the individualist factor does not apply. This country still holds a clan structure, which would make it a collectivist society within a Western country. Ian added, I would go so far to say that it's not often useful to see individualistic and collectivist as absolute defining characteristics. No one ever decides whether they're referring to social, legal, political, or economic principles. If I were to believe most casual observers, China would by definition have no artists, while the West would have no unions. And then Julia replied, every person has different values regardless of culture. However, through Chinese television and dramas, I've noticed a greater importance for 面子 or face, which is essential for thriving in a collectivist culture. Okay, so let's provide some historical context. After the People's Republic of China was established in 1949, private-owned enterprises were replaced by state-owned enterprises, or SOEs. The government established public institutions that use state-owned assets to engage in education, science, technology, and other cultural activities. And the Chinese government became the primary recruiter and employer in China. Now, these state-run enterprises guaranteed lifetime employment, and 铁饭碗, which means iron rice bowl, became kind of a slogan to establish the legitimacy of the Chinese government. So it's important. So the important question is whether this quote-unquote iron rice bowl mentality has been passed down to your Chinese partner or employee, and how does it affect their attitudes and priorities? With this insight, you should be able to create a more effective system of incentives for motivating them. Anastasia wrote, iron rice bowl mentality, surprisingly, can also be found in contemporary France, where there are two types of contracts, CDD and CDI. A CDI contract can only be terminated if one, a firm has economic difficulties, or two, you've made a severe mistake. So in contemporary French society, a CDI contract is most desirable, which is I think quite close to a Chinese iron rice bowl mentality. And then Grace added, I would say such mentalities definitely exist in many regions and certain industries in China. In my own family, my father retired from an SOE, and my brother and sister-in-law are still working at China Telecom and China Post. From my perspective, leveraging Guanxi connections in China is an essential skill for professionals. Anyone who wants to do business in China should learn more about it. We also received a comment from Greg. I've heard the expression used in connection with each year's staggering new record of applications for China's civil service. Interestingly, the civil service in China has an almost mythical significance dating back centuries, focused on study, hard work, and other qualities needed just to get in. And unsurprisingly, China's civil service is still one of the best in the world. Well, so as you can see, we had a lot of great comments and discussions, and of course, I'm not able to get to them all. So I also want to mention some other people who commented, but I wasn't able to mention in this video. So there's Simone, one of my favorite artistic content creators that talks about the real China. Christina, who's a cross-cultural instructor and coach. Manfred, an executive with more than 2 decades of experience in China. And Guan, who runs Plek, a consultancy based in the Netherlands that helps businesses operating in China with employee engagement and onboarding. You can find links to them in the description, and you can see all of their comments in the post. So, I hope this expands your understanding of Chinese mentalities and some of their origins. But more importantly, I hope it helps you become more empathetic to some of their behaviors and responses that you may receive from your Chinese partners, employees, and counterparts without judging them. Because this will empower you to develop deeper Guanxi relationships necessary to take your journey into China to the next level. Just follow the links to connect with our contributors and engage with them directly. You can also share your experiences and insights by clicking the link to the post in the description below, or you can just ask a question, which I'm sure we'd all love to answer. All right, so this is it for this week. See you in the next post, where we're going to discuss the Chinese concept of 委屈, which represents how Chinese people feel.